Perfect.
So thanks for the invite, and thanks for staying until the last one. It's quite late, but I hope I go quick and it's interesting for you. And also it's the least GIS oriented talk, but well, I'm glad Ed went first and introduced the mobility thing, because this is about mobility. I'm going to talk about public transport challenges and our approach from Spare during and after lockdown. So to give a little bit of context, Spare is a Canadian software company. We're specialized in on-demand transport. For those who are not familiar with on-demand, it's everything between a taxi and a bus and a fixed bus line. So it has the flexibility of the taxi in terms of could be door to door, but it's meant to be shared, like pool trips. So getting close to the sustainability and the efficiency of a bus service. So the use cases are usually first and last mile to connect to mass transport, or just anything in transport in low density areas, or special services for paratransit for people with reduced mobility, non-emergency medical transport, etc. So I want to talk about what we've done and our approach for both the two stages that we're living right now, which was when we came into lockdown and now that we're starting to get out of it. So when the lockdown started, so public transport is one of the industries that got like most affected. Ed mentioned it before. We've seen tremendous decrease up to 95% in ridership in some cities. But at the same time, they have to ensure that there is public transport for critical workers. So it's a hard decision to make which lines to keep, which lines to remove. It was a very big challenge in the beginning, the first weeks, to make this decision. And on top of that, they have to increase the protocol of cleaning and hygiene and safety, which in turn, it means more costs added to that. So it has suffered a lot. And we, as an on-demand solution service, we can help in a way. We can be one of the measures that can be taken. But in that sense, we can replace some fixed lines with on-demand service, especially those lines that already had very low occupation in the beginning prior to COVID. Now they can be either removed or replaced by on-demand. We could also create special services for critical workers, like brand new services. And it's a good strategy because we can guarantee the social distancing than in traditional public transport. It's very hard to guarantee, because basically we have much more data. We collect much more data. So we know we could do a profile segmentation on the users because we have their information. We could, in the future, we could integrate some kind of in-app technology for contact tracing, which is what Ed introduced before, to better understand the spread. So it could be more controlled in terms of the users and the distancing. And of course, it's a very quick setup and launch. And I'm going to show you how we have done it. I want to tell you what we did here in Spain, in Palma de Mallorca. We launched the service last April, in the beginning of April. It was a replacement of 2 fixed lines. As I mentioned before, we were down to something like 20 passengers a day. And it's interesting because it was something that they were planning to do for a while, and probably they would go ahead and do it like a public procurement process and everything in the future. But as everything in the public sector, it'll take a while. And it came as an opportunity just to jump and make these decisions and be a little bit brave and make these bold decisions to run a pilot in this. So it's like a perfect use case to run this kind of experiments for them. So it was very lucky they had it in mind. And we also created a new emergency service for medical staff. It's mainly connecting to hospitals. which is this one right here. This is like the area of the on-demand service. And what's also interesting is that we're using a mixed fleet. That means that they have a bus, like, well, a small bus like this one, but it's also complemented by the taxis of the island. So how does that work? So they have one bus running, like this is the whole area. They have one bus running like the whole time of the service, but they also called and they reached out to the 1,200 taxi drivers in Palma to be there as backup vehicles. So they come into action whenever the dedicated vehicle is either busy or far. So the algorithm takes into consideration several things: location and if it's already in a service. No. And these taxis, the only thing they have to do is, well, sign up to the service, to EMT, which is the public transport operator and authority at the same time, and just download our driver app, and they're good to go. They can already start receiving bookings, and they can either accept them or reject them. The booking then will go to the next vehicle available. So this is more or less what it looks like. This is our spare admin panel. One of these is the dedicated vehicle, and the other two are just taxis that are supporting the service. You can see this one here in the center of Palma doing his things, but he's online in case he receives a booking, he can go and take care of the service. So it's quite innovative, not only in terms of tech, which it is, but also in terms of regulation and like stakeholder engagement, because, well, we know, I think this is pretty common in every city. Taxis are usually a hard group to work with, and they usually see this kind of alternatives as competition. And here instead, the EMT just try to make them be part of it and participate. And of course, they're also going through a very hard time on this emergency. So that was pretty innovative from their end. And from our end, we were able to launch it in less than 48 hours, for real, like remotely. And this includes the translation of the driver app, the user app, and the training material. So it's proven that in case of emergency where we have to make decisions fast, it could be a very good solution for transit. This is how the user app looks like. So we run like 5 or 6 cities like that, similar services. Most of them, they were planning on doing something like this before, and they just took advantage of the situation to run it. So now what's going to happen after lockdown goes out? Like, we're already starting to experience it here in Spain and in many other countries. So basically demand will remain quite low, basically because some people are going to still home, like working from home. Business trips are still canceled. Consumption is gonna still is still gonna be very low. So we're gonna go through middle of a crisis, economic crisis. So demand will remain low, but also there's gonna be this fear of using public transport to be in like places with a lot of people, which will translate in a rise of individual mobility, say use of private car, and also walking and cycling, like active modes or motor sharing, and all these schemes are going to be there. In fact, there are some cities that are already taking measures for this, for potential for to give the potential to these modes. But then what's going to happen to public transport? So many studies already are predicting that there's going to be a huge like reduction of trips. And it's interesting to see what has happened already in China when after the coronavirus outbreak, the public transport dropped in like 30%. And instead, almost that 30% went straight to the private car, which is a scenario that nobody really wants. So and the fear is like linked to this capacity problem of the public transport to guarantee the social distancing, you know. So to be very strict and to comply with the robust social distancing, they would have to go back to operate at 15% capacity as an average. So that's pretty low, especially in cities that they're already like with high frequency in peak times and with a great supply. It's very hard to increase that frequency and increase supply. So again, there are many measures to be taken, but what we could provide as a on-demand transport is just like use on-demand as an asset to reduce pressure on mass transport. So we can run in parallel, yeah, like simultaneous lines. Maybe we have more frequency on ours, but we carry less people, so there's less like these contact opportunities. But to do so, we just created this planning tool that basically what it does, it just identifies the best scenario where this could happen. And it takes into account not only the scenario where on-demand could be good or could be effective, but also in combination with the public transport lines available at the moment, which is basically what the planners struggle with. You know, it's like you cannot isolately create an on-demand service, but you have to work in line with what you already have. So we've come up with this matrix. It's still a working progress. Like we still haven't launched it, but just wanted to show you because I think it's interesting. It's this matrix that compares ridership decline with the frequency of the lines in the vertical axis. So if you see here at 0% loss, you can just basically keep going as usual. It's business as usual, maintain the frequency. But as the ridership declines a little bit more, these are like our suggestion for measures to be taken. So you could either reduce frequency for the green, complement with microtransit. Microtransit is just the way they call it on-demand transport in North America. And the blue would be replace it completely with microtransit. So you see, it's of course the more decrease, then the more on demand is going to be helpful. So just to illustrate this tool, we did like a simulation in Houston. So we take the frequency data from the GTFS, which is the common format for public transport schedules and their geographical location. And we took the ridership decrease, well, from the PTAs, the public transport authorities. And this would be something that we could show them, like basically the greens could either stay the same or maybe reduce frequencies. The purple would be good if they would still running, but complement with on-demand. And then the blue would be, you could replace them with on-demand completely. And on the other hand, another aspect of the tool is that we get transport data and we cross it with some census data, talking about age, income, private use, ownership, and so on, to basically identify the best areas in which on-demand would be effective and reasonable. And then we crossed both tools that I mentioned. So we get like the blue lines whenever we get the blue lines, and whenever we get like high probability for on-demand to be effective, which is the yellow map underneath. And this is what we come up with to show to the public transport authorities. As I said, it's a preliminary planning tool. It's not, nobody knows more about their cities than the planners themselves. This is just meant to be like a tool to realize where it could be in combination with the public transport that they have, and based on real data from their GTFS source. That's all I wanted to share with you. Thank you.